Our next story is about smoking. You heard that right, smoking. You know, smokers often ask themselves what really is the big deal with smoking a cigarette. Their argument is simple. Smokers often lead a long and happy life, whereas a lot of those who abstain are diagnosed with cancer. Now, while that may be true, in no way does that suggest that you should smoke. And we certainly are not encouraging you to. Far from it, in fact. I want to tell you about a very interesting report that I read the other day. It said that your smoking habits can be deadly, not just for you, but also your next generation and the generation after. Simply put, your grandchildren can suffer the consequences of you smoking a cigarette. Let that sink in. I'm guessing you're wondering, what kind of consequences are we talking about? Well, lung problems to begin with, even asthma. Look at what this study says. A child is 59% more at the risk of non-allergic asthma if his father is exposed to second-hand smoking in childhood. So what's second-hand smoking? The US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention defines it as a combination of smoke from the burning end of a cigarette and the smoke breathed out by smokers. Basically, second-hand smoking is what you call passive smoking. So that's 59% risk of non-allergic asthma if the father was a passive smoker in his childhood. But what if the father was a smoker? Well, then the risk of non-allergic asthma in the child jumps to 72%. What you must note at this point is that we are talking about exposure to smoke during the father's childhood, meaning when he was 15 years or younger. In most cases, the exposure is second-hand. The grandfather is smoking, so the father ends up passive smoking, and then his children suffer the consequences. If it sounds complicated to you, I will explain it in simpler words. Basically, the study says you can have non-allergic asthma because your grandfather was a smoker. You can also have non-allergic asthma when your father was a smoker. Think about that. Now, have you noticed we have been talking about only a particular gender here, about fathers and not mothers? Well, that is what else is very interesting about this study, something I want to focus on. It finds that the transgenerational effect is applicable only to males, meaning a child will bear the consequences or the burden of his father's smoking habits or his grandfather's, not the grandmothers or the mothers. So does this mean women are cleared to smoke? Again, no way are we suggesting that. Women have their own unique battle with smoking. The study that I was referring to was published in the European Respiratory Journal. Now look at what the CDC says. 1. Mothers who smoke are more likely to deliver their babies early, basically what we call a preterm delivery. It is often linked to disability, even the death of a newborn. Let's come to the second point. Mothers who are exposed to second-hand smoking when pregnant are most likely to have low birth weight babies. And what about mothers who smoke during pregnancy? In such cases, the babies have 20% chance of a low birth weight. And it gets worse. Look at point number 3 now. Studies show that babies are more likely to die from SIDS or sudden infant death syndrome if the mother smokes directly or passively during her pregnancy. Coming to point number 4, these babies are also more likely to have weaker lungs. What does this tell you? Your smoking habits may not affect you, but it will take a toll on your next generation, and this is regardless of what your gender is. And if you are a male, the price is passed on to even the grandchildren. So this essentially is a transgenerational threat. In fact, I would even say it's an epidemic, one that is being passed from one generation to another. Let me show you some numbers now. Tobacco kills more than 8 million people every year. 7 million of these deaths are because of direct tobacco consumption, the rest because of second-hand tobacco consumption. So if you also smoke, and if you've asked yourself this question, what really is the big deal about smoking? Well, you should now have your answer. Stop smoking. If not for your sake, at least for the sake of your family. Think about that. WION World is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.